storage or a cooler box for storage and transportation to the lab. There was also the use of a blank sample just to check background contaminants. In preparing the sample and analysis, the study used the headspace solid phase micro extrometer fiber. And this fiber was immersed in the headspace of the sample that was being heated at 40 degrees Celsius for around 28 minutes. And for analysis, the study used gas chromatography that is coupled with the mass spec. So after the analytes were adsorbed on the fiber was introduced into a gas chromatography inlet at 250 degrees Celsius for 5 minutes so that the analytes can dissolve into the system. Once the analytes were in the system, the oven was programmed at 40 degrees Celsius for 3 minutes, then ramped at 80 degrees Celsius per minute to 200 degrees Celsius, and then held there for 5 minutes. Once the elution was through the GC, then it entered the mass spec for detection at 70 electrovolts with a scan range of around 35 to 300 mass to charge ratio. In the lab, or rather the study took quality control assurance measures by using analytical grade reagents that had a purity of 99.9%. There was a use of blank samples to check for background contamination. Instrument calibration was carried out every after 10 samples run, and calibration of curves achieved a linearity of 0.99. Sample spike recovery tests were also conducted to verify the accuracy, and samples were run in triplicate. Now, on the results of this study, they confirmed that benzene was confirmed to be present in these water samples because it eluded a retention time of 1.526 minutes with a mass to charge ratio of 78 that matched the standard that was used. However, the benzene was below detection limit, so it could not be quantified. These results mean that they contrast sharply with those that have been studied in other areas, and so it indicates that Nakuru aquifer provides an adequate natural attenuation to remove these pollutants from the groundwater, or maybe the pollutant sources might not have compromised the Nakuru town aquifers. Results for toluene, it was confirmed to be present at 2.78 minutes as a retention time with a mass to charge ratio of 92. The detection concentration for toluene was between 0.118 to 0.181 micrograms per liter, and this was very much significantly below the WHO limit of 700 micrograms per liter. Results for xylene was confirmed to be also present at 4.25 minutes with a mass to charge ratio of 106, and the detection concentration ranged from 1.07 to 2.168 micrograms per liter, which was also significantly below the WHO limit of 500 micrograms per liter. And therefore, the results mean that both toluene and xylene were very much below 0.5% of the regulatory thresholds that were set by WHO. And xylene had a very higher concentration than toluene, likely reflects the heavy use of xylenes within our environment. Or xylene being higher concentration likely also means environmental persistence of this compound within the water system. So the study carried out also a spatial distribution and source apportionment, and it was discovered that trace levels of toluene and xylene were clustered in various areas, including where industrial zone, where concentration of toluene was 0.18 to 0.14, and xylene at 1.49 to 1.795 micrograms per liter. In the pipeline zone, xylene was detected at 1.259 to 1.308 micrograms per liter. However, toluene was also absent. In the sewage zone, toluene was present at 0.163 to 0.171, and xylene was present at 2.033 to 2.16 micrograms per liter. Where there is a concentration of garages, toluene was detected in one of the boreholes at 0.18 micrograms per liter, and xylene was detected at 1.771 to 1.855. In the dumping site area, toluene was present at 0.142, while xylene was present at 1.412 micrograms per liter. In boreholes that were near the fuel stations or petrol stations, there was toluene detected at 0.137 micrograms per liter and xylene at 1.072 to 1.829 micrograms per liter. Within the transport corridor in the town, xylene was detected at 1.31 micrograms per liter. So this is an indication of diffuse land use anthropogenic sources that are introducing these compounds in groundwater. Now, the impact of these results on the public health means that borehole water in Nakuru town is currently safe for human consumption with respect to these pollutants. So there is not any immediate risk of benzene induced by that can induce leukemia or hematotoxicity, or toluene and xylene inducing central nervous system depression. However, we need to check that rapid urbanization with its impacts could elevate BTX loads over time, threatening the vulnerable fractured aquifer systems of Nakuru town. So in conclusion of this study, benzene was very much below detection limit, while toluene was present and xylene was also present, as has been noted before. Therefore, however, these detections were very much below the WHO and NEMA maximum contaminant levels for all the three contaminants that were studied. So the trace contamination is mainly driven by diffuse urban activities that go on within the town. And the study also recommends that the Nakuru County government implements a regular VOC or volatile organic compounds monitoring to track urbanization impacts on groundwater systems. And the county government should also mandate regular integrity checks on one of the main sources that could be underground storage tanks within petrol stations to prevent any micro leaks that might be available. Should also enforce stricter environmental guidelines on waste disposal and management, especially within the garage concentrated areas. And the study also recommends an expansion of the research scope to include seasonal variations and other volatile and semi-volatile organic compounds that could also be within this system of groundwater. I use those as my references. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Paz, for the elaborate work on those three pollutants. And you have informed us that the boreholes around Nakuru, they are safe. They are free of these three pollutants. So it is time for questions. Any question from members? It's like there's no question from the members, but let's check for online members if there's any question for Paz. Okay, let's clap for Paz. Thank you, Paz. You can now pull down your slides. We go to the next presenter, who is Nicodemus Umwancha. Nicodemus, are you in?
Yes, Dr. I'm in. I'm trying to share my screen.
Kindly pull down your presentation.
Once you pull down your presentation, that's when I'll be able to present.
Pause kindly. Pull down your presentation. Stop sharing. So Nicodemus is going to present on microplastic contamination in Lake Naivasha. So welcome, Nicodemus. You have 10 minutes for the presentation, and then we have 5 minutes for the questions. Welcome, Nicodemus.
My name is Nicodemus. I'm an MSc student at Kabarak University in the School of Science, Engineering and Technology, the Department of Physical and Biological Sciences. I'm currently conducting my research, concluding on the research report, and the presentation that I'm giving here today is part of my work, a component of the research that I'm undertaking. So my article is on sources, distribution, and the seasonal variation of microplastic-related chemical pollution in Lake Naivasha ecosystem, Kenya, and I'm being supervised by Dr. Rose Sagwe and Dr. Eliud Mishura. It is to all of us that we understand that plastic pollution is rampant and it is a global problem. If you look at some of the common scenarios that we see, I don't know why I'm not able to move my screen, the slide. Yeah, those are some of the pictures that we always see: animals feeding on dumped plastics, vehicles loading waste materials, which comprise also plastics in our dumping sites. This is one place in Nakuru. Then we have open dumping waste with plastics in the river ecosystems or the lake ecosystems. So if you've come from Nairobi around Kinungi area, when you approach Naivasha, I think you've seen fish being sold along the road, and the people are concerned about their safety. And therefore, this attracted my thinking so that I can be able to establish what are these possible pollutants which the fish along in this ecosystem of Naivasha could be having. So plastics that we see here, they decompose and they disintegrate. They break down into smaller microplastics, which can be taken up by animals and even the plants. So about this study, it's not only about the physical plastics that waste we see, but also includes the hidden microplastics related chemicals from different sources. So the study investigated plastic related chemical pollution in Lake Naivasha, and it is inflowing rivers, focusing on water, sediment, and the fish tissues. And I took this in 2 seasons, that is during the dry and rain season. Plastic pollution is a growing environmental problem, just like I mentioned, and there is harmful chemicals into aquatic ecosystems. But there is limited information on plastic-related chemicals pollution in African freshwater lakes. So Lake Naivasha is an important Ramsar wetland supporting fisheries, tourism, horticulture, and thus it's economically and ecologically important site for the country. And it's surrounded by intensive agriculture, flower farms, tourism facilities, and growing urban settlements activities that are potential sources of plastic pollution. So plastic additives and degradation products can disrupt reproduction growth, reproduction, growth behavior, and metabolism in aquatic organisms, leading to reduced biodiversity and altered food webs. These contaminants can accumulate through the food chain, posing human health risks, which include hormonal imbalances, developmental effects, and immune and inflammatory disorders. The aim of the study is to understand sources, distribution, seasonal variation, and the bioaccumulation of plastic-related chemicals with three specific objectives. One is to identify major plastic-related compounds in water, sediment, and the fish, and also compare contamination compounds and levels between dry and rain seasons. And the final to assess the bioaccumulation in fish. In the study methodology, the script comparative cross-section of field design was adopted with repeated seasonal sampling. As I mentioned, the study area is in Lake Naivasha and also the inflowing rivers, that is Malewa and River Gilgil. I sampled water sediment and sediments from the locations. If you can look at the map, this is River Gilgil on this side. We have Malewa on this side as well. And then we sampled within the lake quadrants. We divided the lake into 4, and then we took from the 4 corners of the lake, and I mentioned it is in 2 seasons. So we sampled 61 samples, that is water, sediment, and the fish from the lake quadrants and upstream and the downstream sections of the river. And the water samples were collected using from that centimeter below surface in pre-cleaned glass bottles, while sediment samples were taken from top of the sediment layers, 0 to 5 centimeters, using aluminum graph samplers. And we only used glass simply to avoid contamination of the plastics to our samples. So the fish samples were also obtained from fishermen at the lake landing sites from the 4 corners I mentioned. But from the rivers, we used hook and line. Then we wrapped them in aluminum foils and transported them to the laboratory at 4 degrees centigrade. So at every sampling point, we picked the GPS coordinates, which came up with that map in QGIS. In preparation of the sample and laboratory analysis, sample preparation used an alkaline-assisted polymerization method. Approximately 500 milligrams of sediment, fish tissue, or dried water residue was treated with potassium hydroxide and 1-butanol and heated at 115 degrees for 30 minutes to break down microplastic polymers. After cooling and the solvent removal, residues were reconstituted in a 1-to-1 acetonyl water solution for analysis. And the chemical analysis was performed using the liquid chromatography mass spectrometry using an orbital mass spectrometer, which is the most recent technology which is being used in the country currently. This is the photo of the orbital spectrometer. And in terms of preparation, compound identification used MZ Cloud, MZ Vault, mass list, predictive databases, and only compounds that were below 30% of relative standard deviation were retained, producing a curative matrix of compounds and big areas for statistical analysis. Data processing and relative quantification were carried out using Compound Discoverer software. One of the limitations to the use of this potassium hydroxide is the harsh alkaline conditions, which may have degraded some additives, but this did not interfere with our results from the laboratory. In analysis, statistical analysis were performed using R software. Differences in concentrations of plastic-related compounds were tested across the sites for the 2 seasons using one-way ANOVA. But then non-metric multidimensional scaling, similarity percentage, heat map, and correlation analysis were also used to assess spatial and seasonal patterns. And results were reported as mean standard errors with statistical significance set at p-values of below 0.05. On the results, we identified 6 major groups of plastic-related compounds. We have the PET, that is polyethylene tetraphthalate. We have polyamides, polyethylene and polypropylene fragments, fatty acid amines, antioxidants, and the phthalates, which are monomers in plastics processing. So this indicates that both the direct plastic inputs and the environmental degradation processes are existing and contributing to our pollution levels in the lake and the inflowing rivers. The PET was identified also in milligrams per kilogram, while the other compounds are reported just as relative abundance due to lack of standards. During the rainy seasons, the results show us that multiple compounds detected across all the sites, which included dibutyl phthalates, erucamides, and oleamides, being dominant compounds identified during the rain season. High concentrations were also observed for dibutyl phthalates, a plastic additive from the PVCs, textiles, and agricultural plastics. It's also sourced from electronic wastes, landfills, and open dumping sites. The heat map below shows that the lake water and lake sediments are the main hotspots of contamination. If you look at the red colors, the yellow colors, that shows that, like now, the lake sediments, they are in yellow. If you look at the dibutyl phthalates, you look at the lake water during the rainy season, it is red. So that shows very high concentrations of dibutyl phthalates in those samples. During the dry season patterns, higher contamination during the dry season, particularly in the water samples, which is attributed to reduced dilution during the dry season. And this decreases the concentrations and accumulation of plastic-related contaminants. So the dodecyl sulfates, ceramides, and the erucamides were dominant plastics-related compounds during the dry season, and there is significant spatial differences compound concentrations across the sampling points. Water sediments showed clearly different chemical profiles. If you can look at this heat map again, you can see the spatial variations in terms of concentrations across all the samples that were analyzed. Coming to seasonal variation, clear seasonal differences in compound profiles indicating distinct chemical signatures. And during the rain season, we had high erucamide and phthalates and oleamides. The dry season, we have high terephthalic acid and those other compounds. PET concentration showed consistent patterns, with sediments having the highest concentration at 2.74 to 17, fish moderate at 1.8 to 7.96, and then water had the lowest concentration of PET, which is below 0.5. If you look at this similarity percentage analysis here, you can see all those compounds, like I've mentioned, which one contributed most during the rain season for A and during the dry season for B. So we went further to use the nanometric multidimensional scaling diagram to show how the samples were clustering. If you look at the dry season, all of them are clustering towards one end, but then during the rain season, they are also clustering towards the other end, meaning there is clear distinct split between the rain and the dry seasons. For fish tissue contamination, strong evidence of bioaccumulation of plastic-related chemicals in fish. Erucamide was dominant in fish up to an abundance of 15,470. Dibutyl phthalate and terephthalic acid were consistently detected across all the fish samples. Antioxidants, degradation products also were present. In the discussion part, this is the first comprehensive assessment of plastic-derived chemicals in water sediment and the fish in Lake Naivasha.
Hello, Nicodemus. Nicodemus, kindly, you have 2 minutes. Kindly try to summarize your work.
Then plastic contamination was widespread, spatially variable, and strongly influenced by seasonal changes. On the chemical composition and source implications, there are 6 major plastic compounds, which we have already mentioned. Seasonal dynamics, rainfall-driven runoff during the season, transported plastic-related additives from the urban and agricultural landfill sources into the lake. I want to go straight to the ecological and the human health implications. There is widespread contamination and bioaccumulation in commercially important fish, indicated potential ecological risks for this our ecosystem. For future directions, we look forward to conducting long-term monitoring to assess year-to-year changes in contamination that can be done by the government institutions, include additional trophic level to better understand contaminant transfer through food webs, apply absolute quantification and toxicological studies to assess biological effects, investigate nanoplastics and associated contaminants, and also determine the main routes of PET exposure in fish, because we were not able to determine, it was beyond this scope, if the PET established that was analyzed in fish was as direct consumption of that from the water or is due to breakdown within the fish. So in conclusion, plastic-derived chemical contamination is widespread throughout Lake Naivasha and it is in flowing rivers. Then seasonal changes strongly influence the transport, distribution, accumulation of these contaminants. Bioaccumulation in fish confirms that contamination has entered the aquatic food. The findings highlight potential risks to ecosystem health and the food safety, and therefore this study provides important baseline information and emphasizes the need for integrated monitoring and management strategies that account for seasonal, spatial, and biological factors. So these are part of the pictorials of how I was handling the sampling process and also labeling before transporting to lab. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you. Let's clap for Nicodemus. Thank you, Nicodemus, for the elaborate presentation on microplastic pollution in River Malewa and River Gilgil and also in Lake Naivasha. So we can ask questions. If there's any question.
Right, thank you, Nicodemus, for your presentation. This is Professor Ogiri. Maybe my concern, Lake Naivasha, I know that we usually get fish from Lake Naivasha. And we have made an attempt to see the impact of the plastics. Actually, the plastics for you have concentrated with the fish being the pathway to the plastic. But to me, I'm seeing now this plastic now going to human being. So what is the impact of that? Because maybe as a recommendation, I was expecting a recommendation maybe to the government or to the health institution in the country, maybe to shut down the consumption of fish, maybe from maybe Lake Naivasha or and so on. Thank you.
That's the feedback. I think on the recommendation part, this is work that is in progress, and I will have to include that to inform policy on the side of government. Coming to the first question, the effects are actually huge. If you look at the background, I had mentioned about the disruption of growth issues. Definitely, we are taking or consuming this fish, and we've established it has these compounds, and therefore it is a risk to human as it goes to the food web and the food chain. Sorry.
Thank you, Nicodemus. This is Dr. Winda. I want to ask you a question. You had a very good presentation, a very good work I've seen, but I have one area of concern. In your sample collection and preparation, I've seen you are very particular in collecting sediments from 0 to 5 centimeters. That is depth, I think so. But what about for fish? You're talking about taking the fish tissue. I don't know whether you picked a particular part of the fish, because I know that different, or we know that different parts of fish or those animals could be having different differences in concentration of some of these chemicals. So I don't know whether you're keen enough maybe to get a particular tissue of fish, or it was any part of fish that you picked and then you did a test. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. We were concentrating on the gill, which are the main entry and the filtering points where we could be able to assess this.
Okay, another question.
Thank you, Nicodemus, for the presentation and for the work that you have done. My question goes to the methodology part that you have informed us that you have used one-way analysis of variance. Kindly, would you explain how you have used it in comparison of the seasons?
Sorry, Dr. I didn't get you clear.
I was asking, you have said you used one-way ANOVA in comparison of the seasons, dry and rainy seasons. Kindly, can you explain how you have applied the one-way analysis of variance in comparison of your result for dry and rainy season?
Yeah, actually, there is a detailed table, if I'm allowed to share, which showed the p-values, but it was not part of this presentation. It's the bigger manuscript document. If I'll be allowed to show that.
Explain. Maybe you can just explain without sharing the table.
Yeah, we were looking at the values that were coming, and some of them were overlapping, and therefore we were picking on the highest points from the analysis to report, to show the correlation.
If you look at, if you go and look at one-way analysis of variance, it helps us to compare means across more than two groups or samples. In this case, you are comparing dry and rainy seasons. Those are just two. I was expecting to see maybe a t-test for comparison of two.
I just wanted to project to share another screen.
It's okay. You can share so that we make the work better.
Yeah, this is one which shows the p-values.
Kindly enlarge a bit.
Is it visible?
Just enlarge a bit.
Is that okay?
The p-values are not visible on that document too. You have a rainy and dry season comparison, which is also not clear in that.
But if you look at the means that have been shared there, those that are B, sorry?
You are saying those are just the means that you have shared?
Yes.
Because if you look at what are the, you have some chemicals that you have you analyzed. That is the first column. In the first column, that is names. Those are the chemicals themselves. Then when you come to the column that you have highlighted, you are telling us those are the means?
Like fish during the rain season, yes.
During the dry season? Lake fish during the dry seasons?
Second column.
The second column. You see, you are comparing two groups.
Yes.
So you cannot use one-way analysis of variance in such a case. Statistically, you go to the t-test. Maybe you check your analysis, the choice of the analysis or statistical test. Nicodemus, we can have a discussion after this on the statistical method.
Okay, that's fine.
Yes, how.
Thank you so much. I think, Nicodemus, I agree with Dr. Mwangi. When you have two things you compare, we could have applied t-test, no, not t-tests, we could have applied, t-tests. But ANOVA is when we have more than three. When we have more than three, that's when we can apply ANOVA. I think we'll check on that. Thank you so much, Nicodemus. Now we go to our next presentation. Now we switch to computer science. Victor, are you ready? Okay. Welcome, Victor. Thank you. After Victor, we have one innovation from Victor. So Victor, be ready with your innovation. So Victor is going to present on machine learning-based model for simplifying consumer decision-making in online marketplaces. So Victor, you have 10 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Okay, so my name is Victor Rotich, and I'm going to do a machine learning-based model for simplifying consumer decision-making in online marketplaces. My supervisors or co-authors are Dr. Ruth Oginga and Dr. Andrew Kipkebut. So I'm going to start with a brief introduction where we're going to look at the background behind this, and then we're going to get into the problem. So I don't know if it's So let me get into it. So I believe that most of us have been doing some shopping online. Sometimes we buy some things online. We use some of the popular online e-commerce sites, such as Jumia, Kilimall, and others. And there's a lot of challenges that I have seen, especially for those online e-commerce sites. And I'm going to look at a couple of them, and then we're going to see how we're going to basically solve such a problem. So this is a proposal for something that I'm intending to do. So I hope it's clear now. I can see it's being displayed. So for the background, I've mentioned about the fact that there is a rise in e-commerce, especially in Kenya. Nowadays, almost everybody is doing shopping online. And when you look at, especially the period of time since 2020, since the years of COVID, more and more people are embracing e-commerce and buying things online. This one has come with its own challenges. One of the challenges that consumers have faced, and probably you might also agree with me, is the fact that there's a lot of options that we get presented with. And there's a lot of information that sometimes could be misinformation, sometimes could be disinformation, false information about products that we encounter online. The government has tried to work on this through things like the Consumer Protection Act of 2012 and also the Sale of Goods Act in 2012, but they have really proved not to really work very effectively. So the problem basically is the fact that we have a lot of information overload. So we have information overload in the country. There's a lot of growing number of products that we are getting access to online. And this creates a problem because of the fact that consumers get to encounter a lot of things that probably sometimes you might have not really intended to buy something, but it gets presented to you as in form of a flash sale, sometimes in form of discounts, and you might end up making the wrong choices of when it comes to buying products. By default, human beings know that you have to select from a specific given amount of options. But now the problem is the fact that we don't get presented with those options. We get presented with solutions, we get presented with a lot of products, and we feel as though we just have to buy these products. So the Consumer Protection Act, as I've mentioned, it has proved inadequate in protecting online consumers. One of the problems of the Consumer Protection Act is the fact that it has been applied in the physical setting, but now online it becomes very difficult. And liability in most cases is actually transferred to the consumer. Sometimes you might buy something and then you get something that is not exactly what you were expecting, or you might even get scammed, and it's still happening. So there is no neutral budget-aware tool that can actually assist Kenyan consumers when it comes to getting trustworthy vendors and products that they can actually prove to be legitimate. So I am proposing, this research or this study is proposing a machine learning-based model embedded in a web application that can enable consumers to input whatever they want to buy and also their budget constraints, and to be able to get unbiased recommendations from verified vendors. So we are moving away from depending on Jumia or Kilimall specifically, or any other, like Alibaba and so on and so forth. So they get a unified unbiased recommendation of products. So my objective or the aim of this study is to develop a machine learning based model for simplifying consumer decision making in online marketplaces. Those are my specific objectives. The first objective is of investigating the weaknesses of the current models, then to design a machine learning model for doing this. There is the implementation of this machine learning model, and then finally we're going to do an evaluation of the performance of this machine learning model to simplify consumer decision making in online marketplaces. So the significance of this study is as follows. First of all, we want to reduce consumer decision fatigue through machine learning powered cross-platform recommendations. As I've mentioned, we are encountering a lot of problems, especially when it comes to knowing what exactly is actually right for you to buy and what is legitimate, what is a scam. Number two, we are boosting e-commerce competitiveness because we don't want products that are driven by influencers or paid promotions, but we want something that is competitive and also it reflects the right situation, the right thing on the ground. Then the next thing is to introduce a novel method which can actually link different platforms together through the use of machine learning. I'm going to show you some of the technologies that I'm going to employ for this to actually work. Then building trust is also another thing by giving legitimate vendors fair and transparent exposure, as I've mentioned. We want to bridge machine learning and human decision making across major online marketplaces. We want to avoid the situation whereby the vendor decides what the user wants to buy, but now we want to return back the power to the consumer. Then lastly is basically to support governments in enforcing consumer protection laws through transparency. We want to have transparent process for actually doing this. So the theoretical foundations that I'm going to follow for this particular study is, first of all, we're going to use the consumer decision theory. This theory basically talks of this processes in which consumers go through so that they can be able to make decisions on purchase. So e-commerce, these sites have brought about things like flash sales, and flash sales are these offers that people get maybe on Fridays or on some specific times of the year, which force the consumer to go ahead and buy something and they were not really interested to buy it. Then the other thing was the Consumer Protection Act, which has already proven that it is ineffective for digital environments. The second theory that I'm going to follow is the information processing theory, which talks of information being excessive. It reduces rational decision making, and it also introduces a lot of information overload and also decision fatigue among consumers. So switching between different e-commerce platforms gives consumer some challenges. It increases their mental burden, and sometimes they feel like they just have too much choice to make, and it's not really that effective for them. Then the other theory that I'm going to follow is the technology acceptance model. That is another theory. This is an adoption that is driven by perceived usefulness and ease of use. Basically, how we human beings accept or we use technology, or we prefer to use technology for most of the things that we do in our day-to-day activities. So this model will employ, or it will integrate this theory for ensuring that you have explainable recommendations and adaptive feedback. So there is a layer which I'm going to embed into that system, which basically explains or gives a clear picture, a transparent picture as to how these recommendations were made. Then the other theory that I'm going to use, or that this research is going to employ, is the algorithmic decision theory. So we've been told there is a fairness and context fairness and context is critical in algorithmic outputs. Nowadays, we depend a lot on algorithms. And most of these algorithms, sometimes they don't really give a clear picture as to what we want. Most of them, they are driven by addictions and people who are motivated by things that are flashy. But what we're going to do is that instead of using paid promotions and influencers for things like social media, I'm going to apply machine learning plus a rule-based logic, which will ensure ethical, transparent recommendations. So I've also looked at the empirical gap, where I've seen some of the evidence that supports some of the gaps that I've mentioned about. The first one talks of information overload, which was done by Zhao et al. That is Zhao and others, that is 2022. There is the flash sales. We have the personalization algorithms. There is the trust gaps. And these are some of the few weaknesses that are there. I've mentioned about information overload, the fact that we're having too much information being displayed. And we've seen this in various e-commerce sites. We've seen it in Facebook Marketplace. There is Jumia, there is Kilimall, there is Alibaba. We've seen a lot of information overload. They were being presented with a lot of information, sometimes a lot of inconsistencies. And this brings about these things like flash sales, where you see a certain product, one vendor will say they are selling it at 10,000, another one is saying they are selling it at 100,000 shillings. So we want to bridge that gap. So that's one of the gaps that are there. There is also the personalization algorithms. Nowadays we're experiencing a lot of hyper-personalization. These algorithms try to decide for you what you want, instead of you being the person who decides it. And this has been seen. There is also the issue of the fake reviews. There's a lot of fake reviews and also perceived risk compliance decisions. Sometimes people feel like they have to go ahead and buy something just because everybody talks about it. Then I've talked about the design. There are some certain gaps in design. We don't have a mobile first option for this. We don't have behavioral features being integrated into these models that we currently have. There is no model that has been designed for the unique African contexts that combines all of those and also prioritizes mobile first and also the infrastructure constraints that we have in Africa. So for the implementation, I've looked into service-oriented architecture. There is event-driven microservices, sentiment-aware and context-sensitive models that outperform others in mobile commerce. So I'm going to explore how we're going to look into those. Then, of course, lastly, there is the issue of mobile readiness and also the issue of trust. So when it comes to machine learning model implementation, because most Africans are not really ready to embrace some of these technologies, especially when it comes to e-commerce. So this is my conceptual framework that will inform the architecture or the model of the system. So those are the independent variables. We have the product information, the vendor credibility, pricing, and also the promotion. And then we have the dependent variables, which are being outlined there by purchase satisfaction, improved efficiency, reduced information overload, accuracy of choices. The moderating variables are consumer decision literacy, platform transparency, the regulatory environment, and also internet accessibility, as well as user shopping preferences. For the system that this study intends to come up with, it consists of 5 main modules. There is a user interface layer. We have the recommendation engine, and then we have the data and knowledge base, the analytics system, the output and visualization layer. So the user interface layer is where the user usually enters whatever they want to buy, their budget constraints, and specifications, as well as other details that probably are important for them to make that purchase. The recommendation engine will actually do the prediction and also the segmentation of users, as well as enforcing budget limit as well as vendor credibility. I'm going to use explainable AI to improve transparency. So XG boosts, that is extreme gradient boosting, and K-means clustering is going to be used. Then we have the knowledge base or the database, which will store all this information about the products. This information is going to be acquired from various e-commerce sites. Then you have an analytics system and an output and visualization layer. The research methodology that will be used is the design thinking process. For the whole study, there is the mixed method design, which I'm going to use for the qualitative. We're going to employ qualitative and quantitative approach. For the qualitative approach, we're going to use user interviews, the literature review, plus just asking users about their usage of the e-commerce sites. And then lastly, there is the quantitative approach, which is going to look into model implementation and evaluation. For sampling, we're going to get 150 online consumers, starting with Nakuru, from Nakuru County, of course. I picked Nakuru because it's basically one of the most highly growing cities when it comes to e-commerce adoption, plus the fact that it is somewhere in between various cities that also are growing in terms of e-commerce adoption. For the instruments, we have the questionnaires, we have machine learning, we're going to use semi-structured interviews, that is explainability tools like SHARP, that is for sampling. For data analysis, there is the quantitative analysis, quantitative and performance evaluation, which I've outlined there. So there is a thematic analysis of user feedback. We're going to look at trust concerns. Quantitative analysis is going to look into descriptive statistics, mean, frequency distributions. Yeah. And then for the performance evaluation, we're going to look at some technical matrices, accuracy, precision, recall, and F1 score to measure correctness of recommendation. For validity, reliability, and data collection, those are the issues I'm going to cover. There is construct validity, content validity, criterion, and concurrent validity. And I've also outlined about reliability and data collection. So I've also put into consideration ethics. There will be informed consent from all participants. We're going to consider data privacy, and participation will obviously be voluntary. Somebody has a right to withdraw whenever they want to. So that is what I'm going to look at when it comes to validity of the instruments plus the data collection procedures. So these are the references that I used. Let me break there for now. Thank you. That's my presentation.
Let's give a proper clap for Victor. Thank you so much, Victor. Victor is trying to come up with a model that is machine learning so that we can be able to reduce, even when we want to purchase things online, we'll be able to reduce being scammed. I think that is what you are trying to come up with, Victor. So we go to questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Victor, for the good presentation. I have an observation and a question or questions. On the theories that you mentioned, there are like 4 or 5. The third one, technology acceptance model. I've struggled to find it, to find how it comes into your work. I'm not finding it. because we have those ones that are related with adoption, there are those ones that are related with implementation and success. Do you know where technology acceptance model falls? Because your work looks like adoption, but this is in implementation. So you will need to check that. And then the second observation was on the research methodology. At the end of the day, you are developing an artifact, the model. I've just heard you mention qualitative, quantitative, not heard you mention something like design science anywhere. You will need to explain why it is missing and how you're going to approach, because at the end of the day, you're developing something. And then for this one, probably the statisticians around will help. My little knowledge of statistics is I don't throw a figure for a sample size. You mentioned 150. Where did you get 150 from? How did you build from target? What is the target? And then you came to the sample size. How do you know this sample size is a true representation of the target?
Victor, you have to respond.
Okay, thank you, Daktari, for the questions and for the observation. Let me start with the last question, which talks of the sample size. So I have used proportional stratified random sampling. The figure is not just something that I came up with. We are looking into 6 areas in Nakuru, specifically 6 areas in Nakuru, 6 locations. So we're going to pick, or we're going to select 150 consumers, and we're going to use the formula for proportional stratified random sampling, which will basically take different groups of people in terms of age, in terms of how they've been using the technology, how they are acquainted with technology or the e-commerce. We're also going to use the simple random sampling. Purposive sampling will be used to get experts. And we're going to use those formulas so that we can be able to come up with those figures. They're not just random figures. Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Daktari. I think that is, it's a very important observation, which, I need to consider some other factors here and there. The figure initially, this is just a proposed figure. It's not necessarily like what's going to be applied. This is, for now, not something that is a final figure. It might change eventually, because this is just it's a proposal.
Thank you, Victor. Thank you, Dr. Obuya, for raising that question. It was also one part of the question that I wanted to ask. Victor, maybe how will you, why the choice of stratified random sampling? I don't even want to use proportional. Stratified random sampling.
We have various groups. There are some groups which are a bit older in terms of technology acceptance, and there are some groups which are a bit younger. So we look at the population of the county, where at the moment we have around 2 million plus. So, of course, there are those groups which specifically use e-commerce, and there are some certain groups which are not so much acquainted with it. So after coming up with the figures, then we can be able to use that type of sampling, because it will divide different groups depending on how they interact with these technologies.
It's true, your explanation, but now, if your interest is the people who are using the e-commerce, and now you bring in the people who are not using the e-commerce, will it not introduce bias to your work? Because if I'm not using a technology and now you're asking me to respond on the usage of this technology, automatically I'll not have any information. So that group may not contribute to your work. It may not. So basically, the reason as to why I was asking that question, through the sampling procedure, there was no clear outline of the sampling frame. You need to define your population, target population, so that you can choose that sampling technique properly. I don't doubt the stratified random sampling, basically because you also look at maybe they are all using the technology, but in terms of the age and other factors, maybe they will create stratums. The second question, if you choose stratified random sampling, automatically simple random sampling will come in. Because after stratification, you create homogeneous stratas. And if they are homogeneous, automatically you use, or all the members of that stratum have equal probability of selection. So automatically you use simple random sampling. So it is like repeating yourself. In that case, maybe you need to check on that, how you reframe it. My other question, when you go to your conceptual framework, you had 3 variables. You have dependent, independent, and moderating variable. How do you intend to analyze the moderating variable? Because already you have created it in your conceptual framework. In the analysis, I've seen regression analysis. How will you incorporate the moderator variable in the analysis? Because these are variables, many times they are left out despite they constitute a lot to your work. And if used, they will change the dynamic of your results. So how do you want to analyze that moderator variable?
Thank you for the question. So basically, as I've said, I'm going to use various techniques for doing this analysis. I'm not just going to be using the quantitative and the qualitative. I'm also going to evaluate the performance. And I've mentioned about the technical matrices, such as the accuracy, precision, and recall. There is also the user-centered tools, where we look at the usability scale, system usability scale, and net promoter score, which basically looks into how this system will actually work for the consumer.
Let's go to quantitative variable as you have displayed there. If you look at your last suggestion, you'll use inferential statistics, correlation, and regression analysis to examine variable relationship. Project the conceptual framework. It clearly shows the relationship. The conceptual framework is showing you the relationship, how dependent and independent variables are relating. And still, in between, a moderator variable has been introduced. how would you examine that moderator variable? You are at the proposal stage. It's good to think this is a variable. It's not just a flower girl within your work. It must contribute. You have proposed it in your concept framework. How do you intend to use it? How will it inform your output in terms of qualitative analysis?
Thank you for that. I will definitely look into it. Thank you.
Just tidy your statistics part. It is very easy, especially for the sampling procedure. Just do these are my study sites. I've picked these 6 study sites because of this and this justification. This is the target population. After the target population, this is the formula I'm using for sampling. Apply the formula. This is now the sample size. It will be very clear and easy. But your work is just okay. If you tidy the statistics part, you will avoid so many questions.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you. Let's go. Take one last question.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair and Victor, for the good presentation. Your work is good, only on the methodology part as well. I'd want to see that you do the methodology as per research questions so that it makes your work simple and it will avoid you all the problems in terms that takes you to analysis. So as per research question, how are you going to handle each the methodology that you are going to use as per the research questions? That's an observation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you, Victor. Let's clap for Victor. So, Victor, kindly, the insights you have got, incorporate them because you are at proposal level so that you can improve your work. So let's go to the innovator. Victor, welcome. After Victor, we have Brenda Chemutai. So Victor, you have 10 minutes. Brenda, I hope you are following online. You will be our next presenter. Brenda Kimutai. Brenda, are you in? If Brenda is not in, we have our next presenter.
Good evening. My name.
Before Victor. Okay, then Brenda, you will be ready. And then after Brenda, we have Mamboga, if you are in. Kindly be ready with your presentation. Welcome, Victor.
Good evening. Good evening once more.
Good evening.
My name is Mutua Victor. I am the team leader, Financial Hub. We are under the Directorate of Research, Innovation and Outreach in the Innovation cadre.
we have an innovation in which we are collaborating together with Kabarak University, in which we are intending to propel it to another level called Financial Hub. In the presentation, it's Financial Hub redesigning the architect of money. When I am always doing this presentation, I always like to have a better view of my audience because we will engage you during our demo so that it can make a lot of sense and it can reach home. So I have, I know I don't want to use, we have our parents here who I know they are still young at heart, and we have the Gen Z. So we will have a presentation in which we will do Financial Hub, then you will help me as the audience to do the prototype presentation. That's okay? Okay, thank you. So Financial Hub, I will start by this. You can look into your M-Pesa account right now, your M-Pesa balance. What do you see? You see the balance of your transport, fare, the food that you're going to eat. For those who are going to bet for Portugal, today night, there is also money in the M-Pesa balance. That becomes a little bit mixed up when you're trying to differentiate your expenses. So Financial Hub, we come in as a way to differentiate your money so that saving money goes to the saving pocket, the food money goes to the food pocket. If you are a betting fan and you are betting that Ronaldo will score today, you can bet against the opposition team. Then for food, remains for food. And if you are a person who likes to, who can be generous and send family money back to the family, there's a pocket that can be allocated to that. So we don't just help you to people to budget, we redesign how money moves the moment it arrives. So Financial Hub is a financial manager. So we are a behavioral layer and a mobile money, turning income funds into structured, one, and intentional action before the money is spent. Today being the 23rd of June, I know we are about to get our pay slip by the end of the month. Now, Financial Hub, what it does, you have a plan for the next month. You say X% goes to savings, X% goes to the food of the next month, X% goes to the transport if you are driving, or if you are using a matatu, X% goes back to the family, and for our parents, X% goes to the school fees. Now, you have that plan already. Financial Hub, what it does, because you have that plan, you implement it in the structured pockets. After you have done the structured pockets and you have allocated the percentage, a maximum of 100%, where, then we have when the money comes, it will auto-allocate itself to the structured percentages. So our vision is to bring order in financial life and automatically allocate every unit of money with discipline. And our vision is to become a bigger operating system that empowers financial behavior, not just in Kenya. We will move to East Africa and also to Africa at large. We also had to look at the statistics that are all over, so that not just saying, but we can also use and back up our innovation in the statistics that it is in the market. There are 35 trillion Kenya shillings in volume that always surface through our M-Pesa balance and also our mobile money with zero structural discipline. So 68% of our salaried Kenyans run out of money before the end of the month, which is systematic failure, not just personal or failure. So the root cause is a lump sum income triggering reactive and structured spending. That's a problem in which you are facing, and in the next slide you are also talking about the statistics that are there. What are we bringing new to the market? We have a pre-allocating of the receipt into one way. Then we have built a purposeful pocket that is active and functioning, and the spend spending that you are doing is within the pockets that you had allocated before you get the money. This builds discipline and also builds wealth. We didn't just derive this from ourselves. I was going through the book, The Psychology of Money, by Morgan Housel, in which it was talking about how it has different principles in how people manage their money. And through the principles is how we came to help redesign and come up with Financial Hub. This is how it works, and we will show you in a few minutes. And this is how, okay, we have also structured, this is also another difference, and we found it easy for saving, not just in the old way. In savings, you can, how do we save? We save when the money comes and you're being told, allocate X amount to the savings. So for Financial Hub, we had already pre-allocated before the money came. So when it comes, it just falls into the allocation. No need to start allocating X amount of money to saving towards something else. This is our unique data moat in which we capture and pre-transacted data, not just spending. This helps to track allocation, financial goals, and user define. This is a potential market, not just in Kenya. We decided to think big. We have a total addressable market of 10.8 billion across Africa nation, and over 621 million users who use mobile money account.
Excuse me, Victor, try to summarize because of time.
We also have a revenue scheme in which we are trying, in which we are not just here for innovation. We have a business model in which we also ask for investors who would like to invest, how they can have return on investment. Having 0.3% Kenya, 30 cents Kenya shillings per every transaction that you make. This is the transaction fee that you're going to use as Financial Hub. Then that's the end of our presentation, and this is the vision in which you're going to do in phases. We are going to do, I'll go straightly to the prototype presentation in which we have a minimal viable product. I can zoom. For the minimal viable product, it is still a product that we are coming up with. So we are going to stimulate income through allocations so that you as a potential investor or you as a potential person who is going to be interested in Financial Hub, you are going to see how we are going to allocate it. So this is an example of a product of the prototype presentation, and you have the pockets, and my IT guy, you're going to help me to stimulate an income. Okay, so at first, we are going to the plan in which you're going to use. Yeah. And in the plan, we had allocated 10% for savings, yeah, 25% for transport, 35% for food, entertainment 15%, and outing for those who like to do the outing activities, 10%. And lastly, I added just as an excess to buy a jersey, let's say 5%. So we are going to, that's the plan that you're going to have before you get the income. You have said, I want to have this, I want to buy this in my next financial income. Now, in the next, we are going to stimulate an income in which you're going to see how it is going to pre-structure itself. Now, because it's a demo, we are going to stimulate an income of, let's say, 20,000. Yes, also auto-allocate. The 20,000, now, when you have auto-allocated, you have seen the 10% of savings, 2,000 has gone to saving right away, 5,000 to transport, 7,000 to food, 3,000 for entertainment, for outing activities, 2,000, and 1,000 for JZ. Have we completed our plan that we had achieved? And has the money gone to each specific pocket that we have done? So that is Financial Hub. And you are going to do specific spending from each pocket. Now, an example. Right now, you're going to eat supper. You're going to the food pocket and buy food for supper. If you are going back home, need money for transport, you're going from the transport pocket and getting money from the transport. As I conclude, lastly, we are Financial Hub. We are here to present, number one, looking for potential investors. We also have the micro, small, and medium enterprise that you are going to present during the Nakuru ASK show, specifically for the agricultural farmers who are going to be in the business. Thank you. See you then.
Let's clap for Victor. Victor, thank you for coming up with that hub, especially during these economic tough times. So it can really help us to make some savings. But I don't know if you factor in for emergency. If you have an emergency case, you have now to pull from one of the savings or... Okay, maybe.
Thank you for that presentation. My question is, we live in unpredetermined economic times, and we'll always be affected by various changes that happen. For example, in the pocket, 2 months ago, you could have said that I'll spend X amount of money on fuel. Then within a policy change or a pronunciation by the government, the price of those fuel changes. Does your model arouse redistribution of the scarce resources to the available needs?
Yeah, it does, because a few seconds ago we have had an example of emergency fund.
We have a fixed.
Yeah, no, it's not fixed.
There's a person who is employed, so he has fixed resources, and he has redistributed among his need the percentage.
I think you can, when the example of the fuel, you must have to. What did you do during the? I want to poke your brain. What did you do when the fuel prices were high? You had to shift something from what you liked to now to accommodate for the higher fuel. For Financial Hub, you have said that it has increased from, let's say, fuel price from 115 to the then 213. You allocate it as amount as the priority in which you are going to need. I think I've answered you well. Now, like for the JZ, if I was I would remove money from the JZ and allocate it to the transport. From a less want to a more priority need.
So it is able to do prioritization.
Yeah.
Maybe my choice of an example may be for the old school. Let me go to the young people. Here comes a person who is a Gen Z, who is a fan of football. And in the morning, he places a bet for Arsenal. And by 2, the Arsenal is beaten and the money disappears. Due to emotions, he places for another team and the money is gone.
Yeah.
So does it accommodate that flexibility in terms of you have fixed resources, but being redistributed on varying needs?
Do I have time? We have redesigned it for, let's say, from last year, October, and I have all the answers to your question. Now, for the betting, we have a specific pocket for the betting. Let's say we use the entertainment, 3,000 for the betting, yeah? The good thing is that you are going to analyze your bet, and let's say for Arsenal, you say, I don't want to place all my 3,000. Let's say 1,000. You are going to take money from the specific pocket of the entertainment. That there will be a remainder of 2,000. If Arsenal wins the bet, we also have a very good infrastructure in which the money that you have won is from the betting. You can allocate it back to the betting pocket. And if you have lost and want to bet another game, you have a remainder of 2,000. You can, let's say, you want to bet again with 1,000. So that's the 2,000 that was gone to come back. In which I'm not so much a betting fan because I know the house always wins. But you can also you can still bet, but you can bet until the pocket that you had allocated for betting depleted.
Once it is depleted.
Once it is depleted, it will tell you.
Does it control that urge? You see, some of the activities are addictive, like those bettings. They are quite addictive.
To answer that question for right now, we have let me answer this in this way. We have allocated a percentage for betting. If you want to take another money from food, hiyo ni kerere yako, si ndio? If you want to take money from outing, hiyo ni kerere yako. But what you are saying is, unaweza bet yote ya betting, but for food, it is catered. If you want to take money from food, sasa.
You know that is the behavior of young people.
Yeah.
They can use it and it is depleted, even what they had.
But
so in your model, it needs you can look at how do I improve, I incorporate the control of social behaviors among the young people. That's a very key to the mental health. Because the biggest issue of mental health is how we spend. And the moment the money is not there, what comes in behind the back? Stress. Yeah. The repercussion?
Depression.
Stress, depression, and you're on the other way. So if you can be able to look at how you can integrate technology, bring in the issue of how do we control social behaviors, despite the use of this technology, which is a very good technology, I accept, because the behavior of money use, for you to build wealth, you have to have a lot of financial discipline. But also the element of social and our health, it's quite need to be integrated into the model to make it more cooperative to the young generation, and more to also to the old generation. Some love shopping. You not even know that he has used school fees.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Let's clap for Victor. Thank you so much, Victor. So
Thank you.
those who have questions and maybe inputs which can improve this model, you can engage Victor, he's around. So let's go to Brenda. After Brenda is Mamboga from computer science, but for now let's have Brenda from environmental science. Kindly, Brenda, confirm if you are online. Brenda, are you in? Okay. If Brenda is not ready, we go to Mamboga from computer science. There's a problem? Okay. Mamboga, are you in? Brenda, are you in?
I've even shared my screen.
Okay. So you can go, but we can't see your screen. We can't see your slides.
Let me stop share and reshare again.
Yeah, please do.
I can see Kabarak University has projected my slides. Daktari, can I proceed? Have you seen my screen?
No, we can just see your, we don't see your slides. Just a moment, we fix something here. Kindly Mamboga, Waliaula Mamboga, confirm if you are in.
I am in, Daktari.
Okay, so you will be our second presenter after Brenda.
Thank you.
It's now okay. Brenda, you can go on. You have 10 minutes for the presentation.
Okay, welcome everyone. My name is Brenda Zerotich Kimtai, MSc Environmental Science, Department of Physical and Biological Sciences, School of Science, Engineering and Technology. Today I'll be presenting on the Environmental Soldier Program as a model of sustainable defense. Dr. Danis Awinda is my co-author and supervisor. This work explores how military forces can integrate environmental stewardship into their core operations, focusing on the Kenya Defence Forces pioneering efforts. Climate change and land degradation are increasingly recognized as major security threats that blur traditional boundaries between defense and conservation. Our study evaluates how Kenya Defence Forces Environmental Soldier Program integrates ecological restoration into military functions, creating a new paradigm in defense, paradigm shifts in defense. This study will focus on three approaches of the Environmental Soldier Program, which are the regional biodiversity recovery, watershed protection, and strengthening military community relationships. We analyze how military capabilities can accelerate ecological recovery while enhancing the military's role in society. Military and the environment. The role of the Kenya Defence Forces is to protect the sovereignty and the territorial integrity of Kenya and its boundaries. While militaries are tasked with defending sovereignty, the operations often harm the environment, which creates a paradox because climate change is a risk multiplier at the same time, affecting national security and forcing militaries worldwide to rethink their roles to include sustainable practices. Climate change knows no boundaries, thereby defying the territorial integrity. Environmental Soldier Program was launched in the year 2003 as an ecological footprint initiative. It's also aligned with the Kenya Vision 2030 and the 15 billion trees by 2032, which was a presidential deliberate directive in the year 2023. And in this, KDF was allocated 450 million trees out of the 15 billion. And to do so, the KDF establishing tree nurseries planting trees, doing also water drilling to sustain these trees. Among other ESP roles are waste management and shift to green energies, so using also the solar powers to power this water for feeding into the trees. And one of the major contribution of ESP is civil, military, environmental cooperation. This is, as we know, the military is deployed on operational tasks majorly. So, and the community are the ones who are mostly around, and they should own these projects. So, through their cooperation, the environmental soldier program becomes a success. Global military environmental challenges. Militaries globally contribute 5 to 6% of carbon emissions, primarily through fossil fuel use in vehicles, logistics, and infrastructure. Conflicts like the war in Ukraine have caused severe environmental degradation. Militaries are also increasingly involved in disaster relief and integrating climate security into their operations. So as you can see from the picture in the slide, you can see ammunitions on the ground. You can see that the vegetation has been destroyed from explosions. This has rendered loss of biodiversity, and most of the agricultural farms are unusable, again, because of the toxic components of the explosive, thus degrading the land and reducing the vegetation cover also. So there's a growing role of militaries in disaster relief and climate security integration because of these emerging issues. Green defense innovations. Modern militaries are adopting renewable energy, microgrids and hybrid solar powers at the forward operating bases, which are mostly in remote areas and off from the main grids. So instead of using the traditional generators, which are heavy on the fossil fuels, further contributing to carbon emissions, these solar microgrids at the operational areas are one of the innovations. And looking globally, the difference between the Kenya Defense Forces and other militaries globally, ours is mainly on the human resource part in ecosystem restoration, while there's technological innovation in carbon accounting and green energy. Other innovations are on the environmental impact assessment and social impact assessment of military infrastructure during peacetime. Some of the institutions which are leading in these green innovations are the UN and the NATO. Looking at the sustainable defense paradigm, sustainable defense represents a strategic shift balancing operational readiness with environmental stewardship. That includes green technology, incorporation, circular economy principles, and conservation efforts, especially critical in regions like Sub-Saharan Africa, where environmental degradation fuels conflict. We have seen KDF being deployed in operations which initially they were meant maybe for the Kenya Police because they are within the country, like the Operation Maliza Walifu, Operation Amani Boni, and Operation Maliza Ugaidi, which are they are driven by climate change and resource scarcity. So addressing environmental degradation as a threat multiplier in sub-Saharan Africa. A little has been done academically concerning this, especially in Kenya and regionally East Africa and even Africa. Most work is only in countries like the US and other global militaries. Environmental Soldier Program, institutional integration. Environmental Soldier Program is embedded in KDF doctrine and practice, focusing on training personnel as environmental stewards, community engagement programs like the Shamba system. This is a case study in Nanyuki. Most military cantonments are huge lands, and for success in any ecosystem restoration, we have to have the CIMIC civilian-military collaborations. In the case of Nanyuki, military land was allocated to the local community, whereby they had to establish tree nurseries along the Liki River and the Nanyuki River, and also mostly doing indigenous trees and fruit trees and planting within the military cantonments, which help a lot because they were logging within the military and grazing, destroying any vegetation which was grown earlier. So these are a success, enhancing restoration success and civilian-military relation. On the other hand, there was innovation on geotagging of these planted trees, which can be monitored from the office, thereby reducing the fatigue of going.
Excuse me, Brenda. You have 2 minutes. Kindly try to summarize.
Okay. Moving on to challenges and opportunities. Balancing military readiness with environmental duties presents challenges, especially with frequent deployments. Continuous ecological monitoring is difficult. Furthermore, policy oversight is needed to avoid overburdening the military, ensuring environmental efforts complement rather than detract from defense mandates. In conclusion, Environmental Soldier Program is vital institutional framework, transforming military roles into proactive environmental stewardship. Militaries like the KDF represent untapped resource of climate mitigation by leveraging their diverse manpower, technical expertise, and logistical power. This shift redefines military identity, enhancing resilience, sustainability in resource-constrained settings. Recommendations. To optimize the Environmental Soldier Program, we recommend stronger policy integration at national, regional levels, expanded research to quantify program impacts, and balance roles between security and environmental stewardship to sustain the long-term success. These are the references. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brenda, for the good presentation. You've told us you are using military people in environmental stewardship. So I would like to welcome questions from members here or from online members who are listening to Brenda's presentation. So Brenda, maybe before I give someone else, is this a desk review, this type of your study? What is it?
Yeah, it's based on literature review, which I earlier noted that it's very little academic work has been done. And I will also use this conference to encourage the members of the academic corporations to maybe it's an area to look into and to help do work in research and innovation within the military in environmental stewardship.
Thank you. It's a nice area, so you can compile the work and maybe publish. You can do a thorough literature review, maybe a systematic or a narrative review. Any question from or contribution? There's a recommendation from Dr. Winter.
Thank you, Brenda, for your presentation. As just been said by Dr. Sagwe, I think it's a good area, very green area that has not been really done. And given the privacy that lies with the military, I think, or the defense forces, I think this one will be a very good area. You do a thorough literature review, and the work can be published. So thank you for the presentation.
Thank you, Brenda. So we go to Waliaula Mamboga. Mamboga, kindly share your slides. Mamboga, confirm if you are in.
Yes, I'm in.
So after Mamboga, we'll have Mr. Maina, who will be our next presenter. So welcome, Mamboga. You have 10 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Spencer Waliaula Mabonga, and I will be presenting on the literature review on explainable AI and sample model for multi-class classification for malaria and sickle cell. And my key area would be on the critical data elements, the associated challenges, and the role of machine learning and explainability. And my co-authors are Dr. Laura and Dr. Andrew. The overview of the presentation will have the background and statement of the problem, the research objectives, the critical data elements and the challenges, the machine learning and explainable AI approaches, the sample models for multi-class diagnosis, research gaps and the future direction, and lastly, the key findings and the conclusion. On the background information, malaria and sickle cell anemia represent two of the most significant interlinked public health burdens, especially in Africa. And collectively, there are so many millions of people who have been affected by malaria and sickle cell. The geographical occurrence of malaria, especially in Kenya, is in Western Kenya and some parts of coastal region, and they create a complex epidemiological landscape because of the overlapping clinical presentations or manifestation of these two diseases. They have the fever, anemia, fatigue, jaundice, and these symptoms complicate the accurate diagnosis and the clinical management of the disease. The interaction, there is also the issue of interaction between malaria and the sickle cell, which also adds another layer of complexity, and it becomes sometimes difficult to deal with these two diseases, especially at the early stages of manifestation. The challenges that we have with these two diseases is the endemic regions, especially the western and the coastal regions, where these two diseases have overlapping symptoms. There is also the issue of limited resources, especially the microscope and electrophoresis equipments for diagnosis of sickle cell anemia, which is inaccessible, especially at the primary care level. that is level 1 to level 3 hospitals. And this leads to misdiagnosis, which in return can cause death, especially to those young children. And the issue that we have with these two diseases in the diagnostic dilemma, for example, when a patient comes to a primary care hospital, like level 2, level 3 hospital, manifesting the following symptoms, that is anemia, fever, and fatigue. And there is a challenge. Is the doctor or a physician going to prescribe drugs for malaria, or is it for sickle cell? And if they are going to prescribe the drugs for malaria, if they are going to check, because most of these primary health care do not have most of the primary health care do not have the microscopes, and maybe they are using the other way of checking for malaria, like using of the rapid diagnostic tests. If they check for rapid diagnostic, they're using the rapid diagnostic tests, and they realize that this patient is negative, maybe because the patient has low parasite density in the body for malaria, it is most likely they will assume that this patient maybe has other complication, which is not malaria. But in real sense, maybe this patient, because of the factors, the genetic or the regional factors, may be having malaria and at the same time sickle cell. They may not be able to provide the right medication for the patient, and this leads to diagnostic uncertainty. The problem that we have, especially in these low resource limited settings, is the issue of resources. The first one is the microscope, which is the gold standard for testing for malaria, and the use of hemoglobin electrophoresis for sickle cell anemia. In most cases, in these facilities, the primary level care facilities, level 2, 3 hospitals, these equipments are lacking because of their cost, maintenance, or the shortage of trained personnel. There is also the issue of the rapid diagnostic tests for malaria, the solubility test for sickle cell anemia at the primary care point, where we have limitation, especially when it comes to sensitivity. Then lastly, there is also the issue of overlapping symptoms, because these two diseases manifest almost 2-3 symptoms which are common. And in most cases, when patients with the sickle cell experience illnesses, they sometimes may not be treated for malaria because of the equipments that are lacking these hospitals. These diagnostic uncertainties then drives the misdiagnosis and the mismanagement, which may lead to death of the patients. The promise that we have is in the form of AI. So the emergence of AI and the machine learning has generated optimism in regards to analysis of complex dimensional clinical data, and this enhances the accuracy of diagnosis. The machine learning algorithms, it excels especially in identifying of patterns in data sets, and potentially integrates the demographic, the clinical, and the laboratory data to generate a more accurate diagnostic predictions than in a single test. However, there is the issue of black box, which poses a significant barrier to clinical trust for healthcare professionals, because they will require to know not only how accurate the prediction was, but the rationale behind the prediction. And this is where the explainable AI comes in to help mitigate this issue. The research objectives for this literature review paper is to investigate the critical data elements and associated challenges in diagnosis of malaria and sickle cell anemia in a co-endemic setting, to examine the application of machine learning the application of machine learning in addressing these diagnostic challenges, to evaluate the ensemble learning approaches for multi-class disease classification, then lastly to identify the research gaps and a proposed future direction for developing a context-aware, explainable AI diagnostic tool. The methodology, we used a systematic literature search, which was conducted on various electronic database. And these records were between 2000 and 2025. And we employed a narrative synthesis approach to identify the patterns, the gaps across the literature. And the findings are as follow. The first critical data element is the demographic data, and it emerged that age is a critical determinant for malaria, especially with the children under 5 years, and the pregnant women, because they are very vulnerable. There is also the issue of the geographic origin and the residence patterns, which play a crucial role in this endemic region. It was also found out that for sickle cell anemia, there is the issue of ethnicity, history, genetic history, that also serve as a primary demographic risk indicators in this region. On the second critical data element, which is the clinical data, it was also found that malaria typically presents acute fever, headache, fatigue, etc., which progress to several complications. And in contrast, in the sickle cell anemia, the sickle cell anemia manifests as a chronic disorder, which is punctuated by acute vaso-occlusive crisis, which causes severe pain, and chronic hemolysis, which leads to anemia, fever, jaundice, and splenomegaly. And these temporary patterns differ markedly, but the symptoms overlap, creating a diagnostic confusion. And lastly, the critical data element is the laboratory data. For malaria, microscopic examination of blood smear, which remains a gold standard, but it's operator independent, that is requires skilled personnel and equipment, which are most unavailable at the primary facilities. Then there is also the issue of rapid diagnostic tests, which is offered at the point of care, but have limited sensitivity, especially when it comes to less low density parasites in the body. So the challenges that we have with the critical data elements is the data quality, the integration of demographic, clinical, and laboratory data into an ML-ready dataset confronts the multiple quality challenges. And one of the challenges is the missing data, which arises from the logistical failures, the incomplete clinical workflows, the patient dropouts, etc. Then there is also the other issue of class imbalance, which is a persistent challenge, especially for co-infection and rare sickle cell anemia subtypes. And most of the models, when they are trained on imbalanced data, they always skew towards the majority outcomes. For example, the malaria positive or malaria negative, and this reduces the sensitivity for clinical, critical, minority conditions. Then there is also the issue of dataset shift, where models which are trained on one population tend to fail when they are subjected to a different genetic or environmental.
Mamboga, kindly try to summarize your work. You have 2 minutes.
Then there is also the issue of heterogeneity, especially when it comes to reporting metrics and absence of population-specific references. Then there is now the issue of the ML algorithms for disease classification like random forest, the support vector machines, the gradient boosting machines, and the deep learning, which have been used, but these studies remain predominantly single disease focused, therefore missing the critical multi-class need, especially for endemic areas. And this one brings us to the explainable AI, which is used to provide explanation that reveal the reasoning behind the model's predictions, building the trust and enabling the model to audit. And these are some of the ensemble learning ensemble learning models. Maybe I may go to the research gaps. What is missing? From the identified literature reviews that we have done, there are 4 things that we realized that were missing. There is the absence of a unified 4-class classifier, especially for malaria, that can be able to classify the 2 diseases as malaria only or malaria positive, sickle cell positive, or infection or negative. And this reflects a clinical reality, especially in this endemic region. The second one is the over-reliance on specialized data modalities, especially the digital microscope, the images, and these are things that are unavailable, especially in a primary care facility. The third one is the unexplored ensemble AI synergies, the integration of explainability into ensemble architectures. It's not fully explored. And lastly, there is insufficiency when it comes to attention to data generalizability and ethical deployment. The recommendation that we have, the first recommendation is to develop and validate an integrated multi-class diagnostic framework that will be able to use a stacking ensemble architecture capable of learning disease-specific and interaction features. Then there is also the issue of pursuing an AI paradigm that will be able to investigate the minimum viable data approaches to leverage the demographic details, symptoms, vital signs, and at the point of care test results, than the use of specialized modalities. Thirdly, the advance of ensemble-specific explainable AI that will be able to be tailored to ensemble models, especially enabling clinicians to trace the contributions through the base learners and the meta learners. And lastly, to establish a multi-center data consortia to pool diverse representative data sets while maintaining the privacy and the governance issue, so that most researchers can be able now to use these data sets to advance the testing of the models. As for policy, we recommend to strengthen health information systems that are built using local AI capacities, develop ethical governance frameworks, and engage end users, especially in design. And lastly, to promote equitable access to AI diagnostic tools which are designed for and accessible, especially to most of the resource-constrained settings in the rural areas. In conclusion, this review has synthesized the interconnected diagnostic challenges, especially for malaria and sickle cell in a co-endemic setting. And the literature reveals that demographic, clinical, and laboratory data suffer from significant quality issues, the missingness, the class imbalance, the lack of standardization, data set shift, and this one creates a diagnostic perfect storm in a resource limited setting. And the machine learning algorithms have demonstrated that they promise in a single disease classification, yet the application, especially to an integrated multi-class diagnosis of malaria and sickle cell, remain not explored. And lastly, the ensemble learning approaches, they offer robustness, especially to noisy, heterogeneous field data, and can potentially disentangle complex disease interactions. When combined, especially with the explainable AI techniques such as SHARP, the model will be able to provide high diagnostic performance and actionable trust-building explanation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's clap for Mr. Mamboga. So this is very interesting, Mamboga, where you are using AI to do a review on sickle cell anemia. So if Mamboga, you can go to your objectives. You can scroll up to your objectives. I think you need to redo your objective properly. So you should show the overall objective or the major objective, and then don't state that our literature, no, don't refer to the second person, just we use the third person pronoun when we do the objectives. And also if you go to your methodology, you said you used review literature materials from 2000 to 2025. Yes. So you have not shown why you excluded the rest. So we have a model known as a PRISM model, which we use when we do a systematic review, which may be, which shows maybe the total literature materials you gathered, maybe they were from this, and you excluded maybe materials below 2000. Yeah. So ensure that you factor in that model. It's known as PRISM model. Any question to the group, to the members, or contribution? For online members, do we have a question to Mamboga? Okay, it seems there is no question. Thank you so much. Let's clap for Mamboga. Kindly let's clap, members. So Mamboga, you can pull down your presentation. Now we go to Mr. Maina. Mr. Maina, you can come for your presentation. So David Maina is from physics. Let's give him 10 minutes for the presentation.
So thank you. I can now proceed, and I welcome you all to this 16th International Research Conference. And I go by the name D.N. Maina, and I will be presenting our research findings on entitled The Study of Electronic Structure and Lattice Dynamical Properties of bismuth telluride and bismuth telluride doped with potassium materials using the first principles calculations for thermoelectric applications. On the presentation workflow, I will be highlighting on the introduction, literature review, methodology, results, and conclusion. In the introduction, these thermoelectric materials, these are the materials that can directly convert heat into electrical energy, giving a sustainable means of waste heat recovery. And this material, bismuth telluride, is well-known thermoelectric material whose figure of merit is high at room temperature. And now recent studies have shown that doping or substituting alkali metals such as potassium into this material can significantly modify its electronic structure, carrier concentration, and alter phonon transport properties. However, a comprehensive understanding of how this incorporation of potassium affects both electronic and vibrational behavior remains limited. And by adding potassium into this bismuth telluride, it affects both the electronic and vibration behavior. So in this work, we present a detailed first principle study of this material using density functional theory with full inclusion of spin-orbit coupling. And this study is looking into the electronic structure, the lattice dynamical properties of these two materials. And the main objective being to elucidate how potassium substitution influences the electronic band structure, density of states, phonon properties, with particular implications or emphasis on the implications for thermoelectric performance. On the literature review, among the known thermoelectric materials for this bismuth telluride, they have a narrow bandgap semiconductor that is at a value of 0.15 electron volt. And the performance of this material can be improved through band engineering and phonon scattering mechanism that reduce lattice thermal conductivity. On the methodology, how we did this research was that all the calculations were performed using the quantum espresso code. Why we chose this code is an open source code which employs the plane wave basis sets and pseudopotential methods. And we also used this spin orbit coupling, and non-collinear calculations were performed through throughout due to the strong relativistic effects associated with heavy metals. And for the lattice dynamical properties, we evaluated them using the density fractional perturbation theory. The values, the parameters we used the kinetic energy cutoff 40, charge density of 320 Rydberg were adapted for convergence test. On the Monco-Spark, we used a 12 by 12 by 4 Monco-Spark K-point grid for relaxation and optimization. Then the lattice dynamical, we used the density fractional theory. For non-dispersion, we used a 4 by 4 Q-point grid, and for bismuth telluride, we used a 2 by 2, and for doped material, we used a 1 by 1 by 2 supercell. On the results, we were able to obtain the structural properties, and we were able to optimize the two materials, and these are the two figures showing the two materials. The first one is for bismuth telluride, which crystallizes in hexagonal phase. Then doped material, that is bismuth telluride doped with potassium, has a cubic structure. Then we did the optimization where we plotted the total energy against volume for the two materials, and we had the smooth curves for lattice parameters. After optimization, those are the results we were able to obtain. Then on the electronic structure properties, we were able to compute the structural property, the electronic structure properties for these two materials, where the bismuth telluride had a negligible band gap, while the doped bismuth telluride had an indirect band gap of 1.1 electron volt. These are the results for the electronic properties for bismuth telluride, showing a negligible band gap. The red line in this figure is the Fermi level, and we can see it's a negligible band gap. Then we were able to calculate the electronic band structure for doped material, and this is the figure showing the band structure and the density plotted alongside the density of states for the doped material. That is bismuth doped with bismuth telluride doped with potassium, and you can see the band gap opens up in this figure. Then we were able to do the vibrational properties. Under this, we did the phonon dispersion and the density of states for the two materials, and we were able to get the phonon dispersion and the dynamical properties for bismuth telluride. And the calculated phonon dispersion are shown in the figure next. This is the figure showing the phonon dispersion and the phonon density of state for bismuth telluride. And from the figure, we see there is no negative frequencies, and therefore the material confirming the dynamical stability of the optimized structure. The values here, for the frequencies, are positive values, indicating that this material was dynamically stable. Then, implication of these properties on thermoelectric performance is that the combined phonon dispersion and PDOS analysis indicate that bismuth telluride possesses several key features favorable for thermoelectric applications, which include low acoustic phonon velocity, strong mode coupling, mass-induced phonon scattering, and anisotropic lattice dynamics due to layered structure. These factors contribute to low lattice thermoconductivity, which is essential for achieving high thermoelectric efficiency. The strong coupling between acoustic and optical modes, then combined with anisotropic dispersion and mass contrast effect, underscores the intrinsic phonon scattering mechanism responsible for its excellent thermoelectric performance. In conclusion, what these findings, we can conclude that a comprehensive first principle study of these two materials have been performed to elucidate their structural, electronic, and vibrational properties. And both compounds confirmed to be semiconductors with indirect band gaps. And the introduction of now the potassium, which is the dopant, opens the gap while softening for non-modes. And these changes imply enhanced carrier mobility, reduced thermal conductivity, which are key features for high performance thermoelectric materials. And now this research on this resource provide valuable insight into tailoring bismuth telluride-based compounds for improved energy conversion applications. And now the combination of improved electronic transport and reduced thermal conductivity makes the doped material, that is bismuth telluride doped with potassium, a promising thermoelectric candidate. These are some of our selected references and acknowledgement. We acknowledge the Center for High Performance Computing, which is based in Cape Town, South Africa, for providing computational resources to run the input and obtain the results. We also acknowledge Kabarak University for giving us the chance to have this presentation. That is the end. Thank you all for listening. I maybe welcome in case there is any question. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. David, for the well-summarized presentation. Let's give a proper clap for David. We go now to questions. Any question from the room? Okay, for the online members, any question kindly? It's like there is no question. Thank you so much, David.
Thank you for the chance.
Okay, so we can have directive for tomorrow. So I'm welcoming Dr. Winda to give us direction on how we can, on the program tomorrow.
Thank you, Dr. Sagwe, for a job well done. The whole of mid-morning and afternoon session, I think it was very good. I want to take this opportunity to thank those of us who have remained up to this time. It is quite unfortunate that before we went for lunch, this room was full. It was packed to the brim. Immediately after lunch, we have very few. So that one is not a very good indicator, because we are here to learn, okay? And also to support the presenters. Now we have come to the end of today's presentations, today's activities, and we want to break. So tomorrow, this room will be used for a public lecture, and all the staff members are expected to be here at exactly 9. So that means, therefore, that we will not use this room tomorrow, but we wanted to have some presentations before we come for the public lecture. So possibly we are trying to get another space at Kabuo. So tomorrow in the morning we'll converge at Kabuo so that we can have 2 or 3 presentations before we can come for the public lecture. Then after the public lecture, we'll go to the chapel, and then we'll resume our presentations for those that will remain from 2, probably again down at Kabuo. So I want to therefore urge all of us, let us try to come very early, because we want to start at exactly 8, so that we can do even 3 presentations before we can break for the public lecture. So at this particular juncture, I want to request our Dean, who is here, just to give a few remarks, and probably, I think Dr. Kuria will pray for us thereafter as we close. Dean.
Thank you, members, for your patience. Up to 5, you are still here to hear and share the knowledge. I don't take it for granted. As Dr. Awida have given us direction, there is only one part he has left. There will be tea somewhere in between. So please don't run away. In between the morning, around 10, so there will be something for you. So don't miss. That's why he was put here in front, other than at the back. So I ensure you purpose to attend, more so to run. These ideas can be commercialized. So look at where you'll come in because of the future. The future does not end in the classroom or the exam room. I have done my last exam, now I go and look for the job. What may be presented here may be your future. You may commercialize and you don't even need to be in an employment environment. You become your own CEO. So those are the ideas that we are trying to share through conferences, through networkings. So don't just come and expecting just to listen and go. Come with an expectation. Tomorrow from the program, there are several other very high octane presentations tomorrow. I want to stop there. I request Dr. Mili to play for us.
Shall we pray? Almighty and everlasting God, we come before you this evening in thanksgiving. Lord, we had prayed to you in the morning that you be with us throughout the day, and for sure you have taken us through the day. We have been through a lot, and now we have come to the closure of the day. We want to say thank you to you, and even as we part, Lord, we ask you to go with us, to bless us, and give us a good rest in preparation for tomorrow, even as we go to meet with our friends and even our family. So, Lord, we ask for your blessings as we leave this place. And we ask also for a safe journey as we go to our residence and even to our home. We pray this shortly, believing and trusting in the mighty name of Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. Amen.
Thank you, and you have a good evening.